Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. This time, we're going to be looking at something pretty interesting, I think.
Yeah.
Connections between spiritual teachings and IT practices.
Okay.
You shared some sources with me, and I got to say, it's quite the mix. We've got teaching about wisdom and knowledge, and then
Yeah.
right alongside that, your own notes on, like, tech and teamwork. Pretty unique combo.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm curious to see how we can bridge these two worlds. They seem very separate.
Yeah, me too. And we actually found 10 key points across all these sources, and some of the parallels are really, really surprising.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so for example, both your spiritual texts and your IT notes, they both emphasize this idea of sharing knowledge.
Okay.
One text even goes as far as to say that wisdom should be delivered under any circumstances.
Hmm.
What do you think about that, like in the context of it?
Well, I think it makes me think about how important documentation is,
Right.
especially like when you're onboarding new team members or like handing over a project.
Yeah.
If that knowledge transfer isn't clear, if it's not thorough, things can really fall apart.
Oh, yeah, it's so true.
Yeah,
I mean, we've all been there, like, frustrated with a project that has terrible documentation.
exactly.
But on the flip side, when a project is well documented, it's like,
It's a dream,
it's such a smooth process, and it doesn't even have to be super complex.
right?
Your source mentions just building simple knowledge bases, like wikis or how-to guides.
Yeah,
Have you found those helpful in your work?
absolutely I have.
Yeah,
It's all about making that knowledge accessible,
right,
not keeping it locks away.
right.
It's almost like you're building a library for your team.
Ooh, I like that. A library for your team. That's a really good analogy. It really highlights that responsibility that we have to share what we know.
Hmm.
So let's maybe shift gears a little bit here.
Okay.
Another fascinating connection we had involves the concept of the Trimurti.
Ah, the Trimurti creation, sustenance, and destruction.
Exactly, and it's such a powerful concept.
Yeah.
And the source material actually suggests that this framework can be applied to how we approach knowledge itself.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's not just about creating new knowledge. It's
Uh-huh.
also about maintaining it, adapting it, and eventually even letting go to make way for new insights.
Yeah,
So do you see this playing out at all in the IT world?
for sure. Yeah, absolutely. In fact, it really maps onto the software development lifecycle pretty well.
Okay.
So you have that initial planning and creation of a system.
Right.
Then you move into operations and maintenance, and then finally that eventual deprecation or like phasing out of the system. Each stage is important.
That's a really interesting parallel, and it really kind of highlights the cyclical nature of
Yeah.
both knowledge and technology.
Exactly.
And just like ignoring one aspect of the Trimurti, can create imbalance.
For sure.
Neglecting any of those stages in the software development lifecycle can cause problems down the line.
Yeah.
It makes me think of like agile methodologies, how they emphasize balancing these stages in project management.
Yeah, it's recognizing that everything has a life cycle, and understanding those cycles is key
Yeah.
to, effective knowledge management and development.
It makes me wonder, have you ever seen like specific instances where an organization struggled because they didn't pay enough attention to one of these stages?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I've seen projects just fall apart because they rushed through the planning phase,
Oh, yeah.
or systems, that became really unwieldy and difficult to manage because they weren't properly maintained.
Ugh.
It could be a real mess.
It can be, yeah. It's a good reminder for us all to consider the whole life cycle, not just that exciting initial creation phase.
Yeah.
So, okay, this next connection we uncovered, this might seem a little unexpected.
Okay.
It involves gardening.
Gardening.
Yeah.
This should be interesting.
Yeah, right. So the spiritual teaching here emphasizes the importance of preparing the garden
Okay.
before you introduce like advanced knowledge.
Right.
So you need to create the right conditions for that knowledge to take root and to flourish.
I see. That's a beautiful analogy.
Yeah.
It makes me think about the role of mentorship in it.
Okay.
So like senior engineers and managers, they become the gardeners who nurture the junior team members.
Okay.
Instead of overwhelming them with information right away, they introduce these concepts gradually
Yeah.
and create this really supportive learning environment.
That's so crucial.
Yeah.
It reminds me of my own experience as like a junior developer. I had this mentor who just took the time to explain things so patiently,
Yeah,
breaking down complex concepts into these digestible pieces, and it made such a difference.
it's huge.
What about you? Did you have any mentors who played that gardener role in your career?
I did. Yeah. I was very fortunate to have several mentors who really helped me,
Yeah.
guide me, and cultivate my skills.
Yeah.
They understood that knowledge really needs fertile ground to grow.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah,
Yeah. It really is amazing how much of an impact a good mentor can have.
for sure.
And it kind of makes me think about another parallel we found between the spiritual sources and your IT notes.
Okay.
This emphasis on continuous learning.
Right.
One text even suggests constantly revisiting your notes to get a deeper understanding.
Hmm.
It's an idea that really resonates in the IT world, don't you think?
Absolutely. Yeah, if you're not learning in IT, you're falling behind.
Yeah, that's true.
New technologies are always emerging: cloud computing, machine learning.
Right.
It never stops.
Yeah, the landscape is constantly changing, but the source material actually offers a really helpful perspective on this.
Right.
It's not about, frantically chasing every trend. It's about cultivating that mindset of just consistent growth.
I see.
And it even recommends using tools like Evernote or Notion
Yeah,
to keep your notes organized and revisit those key concepts.
yeah.
Do you use any tools like that?
I do. I find them super helpful for managing all the information that's coming at me all the time.
Yeah.
It's easy to get overwhelmed, so having that system to capture and revisit knowledge,
Yeah.
it's essential.
Yeah, it's like having an external brain
It is.
to help you make sense of it all.
Exactly.
So this next point might seem a little counterintuitive,
Okay.
especially in a field like IT that's so collaborative.
Right.
But your spiritual teachings actually highlight the power of introversion for processing knowledge.
That's interesting. At first glance, it does seem a bit odd,
Right.
but then when you think about it, the deep focus you need to have complex problems in IT
Yeah.
starts to make sense.
Exactly. The source talks about introversion as a tool to block out distractions.
Right.
And just really dive deep into a subject. And
Yeah.
that kind of deep work is so crucial for things like coding or designing intricate systems.
Absolutely.
Have you noticed that you do your best thinking when you're alone?
Oh, yeah, definitely. There are times when I just need to shut out the world
Yeah.
and just wrestle with a problem in my mind.
Right.
That's when I usually have those aha moments.
Yeah, I can relate to that.
Yeah.
It makes me think of like time blocking and do not disturb modes.
Yep,
Just tools to carve out those pockets of uninterrupted focus.
for sure.
But it's a balance, right? Because it also relies so heavily on collaboration and communication.
Oh, for sure. It's not about becoming a hermit or anything.
Right.
It's about recognizing the importance of both
Yes.
individual focus and collaborative brainstorming.
Yeah.
Sometimes you need to step back and go deep.
Right.
And other times you need to be bouncing ideas off your team.
Exactly. It's about finding the rhythm that works for you.
Yeah,
And for the task at hand.
absolutely.
Another point that really resonated with us was this emphasis on simplifying complex ideas.
Okay.
One of the texts even uses this image of rivers of knowledge emerging from clarity.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
It is, and it's so important in IT, especially when we need to explain these technical concepts
Yeah.
to non-technical people.
For sure. We can't expect everyone to understand RAID arrays or cloud backups.
Right, exactly.
We have to break these things down into relatable terms.
Yeah, it's like we're building a bridge
Yes.
between the technical and the non-technical.
Exactly.
Finding those common reference points so everyone can understand and engage with the information.
Yeah, I like that, building bridges.
Yeah, it reminds me of how the source material actually gives us some concrete examples, like
Okay.
comparing data storage to filing cabinets or APIs to bridges.
Yeah, I like those examples, although, maybe the filing cabinet analogy needs an update.
Right.
In today's world, maybe we should compare data storage to like a massive online library.
Yeah, that's a much better fit for the digital age.
Right.
It's a good reminder that even our analogies need to evolve.
Yeah.
But the core idea is still the same, making complex ideas accessible to everyone.
Exactly. Clear communication, finding those shared points of understanding.
Yes, exactly. Now, this next point might seem a little more philosophical,
Okay.
but I think it has some really important implications for how we approach work in it.
Okay.
It's this idea of avoiding the pursuit of fleeting fame or recognition.
Interesting.
Yeah, one of the texts compares it to chasing shadows,
Oh.
which is such a striking image. How do you see that playing out in it?
Well, it makes me think about the temptation to prioritize the flashy projects
Oh, yeah.
over the ones with lasting impact.
Right.
Sometimes we get caught up in, chasing recognition or quick wins
Yeah.
instead of focusing on the work that really matters.
It's true. It's so easy to get distracted by that shiny new thing.
Is.
But the source material reminds us that true value comes from building things that last,
Yeah,
solving real problems, and contributing to a larger purpose.
absolutely. It's about substance over superficiality.
Yes.
It's about asking ourselves, what kind of legacy do we want to leave behind?
That is a powerful question.
Yeah.
It challenges us to look beyond those immediate rewards and consider the long-term impact of what we're doing.
For sure.
So let's shift gears a little bit
Okay.
and talk about something that can be tough in any field,
Okay.
but especially in a collaborative environment like IT, dealing with difficult people.
Oof, yes. The inevitable thorns in the garden of teamwork.
Exactly, but the spiritual teachings actually offer a really hopeful perspective on this.
Okay.
They talk about transforming those thorns into flowers. through patience and understanding.
That's a beautiful metaphor.
Yeah, and it suggests that even the most challenging individuals
Right, yeah.
can be approached with empathy and compassion.
Yeah.
The source material really emphasizes this idea of seeing things from the other person's perspective, trying to understand, the reasons behind their behavior.
Yeah.
And it even gives us some practical tools like retrospectives and one-on-one meetings
Right?
to help us address conflicts and build stronger relationships.
Those are such valuable strategies for navigating those tricky team dynamics.
Yeah,
Sometimes all it takes is a willingness to listen and understand.
yeah.
And you can transform that thorny situation into something positive.
It's about remembering that we're all human.
Yeah.
And we all have our own challenges and perspectives.
For sure.
Have you found that taking that empathetic approach has helped you?
Absolutely. It's not always easy.
Right.
But when you can approach a conflict with genuine curiosity
Yeah.
and a desire to understand,
Yeah.
it can make a world of difference.
It's about turning that potential clash into an opportunity for growth and connection.
Yeah, for sure.
Speaking of growth, this next parallel takes us back to those foundational elements of knowledge.
Okay.
The spiritual teachings talk about staying connected to the source of knowledge,
Right.
remembering those core principles that underpin everything else.
Interesting.
Yeah, and it has this direct correlation in IT. No matter how quickly technology changes,
Yeah.
those fundamental principles, logic algorithms, problem solving,
Right.
they remain essential.
It's true.
Yeah, sometimes when you're faced with a complex problem,
Yeah.
the best approach is to strip everything away,
Yeah.
all those fancy framework, and go back to the basics.
Totally. It's like hitting the reset button on your thinking.
It is.
When you reconnect with those core principles,
Yeah.
it can really clarify the path forward.
It's a good reminder that even in a field as dynamic as it,
Yeah,
those foundational elements are so valuable.
for sure.
So as we're getting to the end of our exploration here,
Okay.
I want to touch on one final parallel that really resonated with both of us.
Okay.
This idea of finding joy in the journey.
Yeah, the spiritual teachings really emphasize finding happiness
Right.
in the process of learning and creating lasting value.
Yeah, it's a powerful message.
It is.
Especially in a field as demanding as it.
For sure.
It's easy to get caught up in the pressure to deliver results,
Yeah.
to meet those deadlines, to constantly be pushing for the next big thing.
Right?
But the source material reminds us there's joy to be found in that everyday act of creating, of problem solving, of continuously learning and growing.
It's about appreciating the process, not just the outcome.
Exactly.
Celebrating those small wins along the way.
Yes.
Those moments of insight, those breakthroughs that keep us motivated.
Yeah, absolutely. And they're worth celebrating no matter how small they might seem.
They are.
Yeah, it's so easy to just get focused on that destination.
Right.
That we forget to enjoy the journey itself.
Yeah.
But, those small wins,
Yeah.
those moments of discovery, those are what make it rewarding.
They do. It's like when you finally crack that tricky bug
Yeah,
or you figure out a really elegant solution.
right.
It's so satisfying.
It is. Those are the moments that keep us going.
Yeah,
Well, wow, we covered a lot today.
we did.
It's amazing to see how these spiritual teachings and IT practices,
Right.
they seem so different at first,
Yeah.
but they really have so much in common.
No, they do. It's been a fascinating exploration.
Yeah,
We started with, knowledge is a duty,
right.
and we uncovered parallels in everything from the software development lifecycle to the importance of mentorship.
Yeah, we even talked about the power of introversion
Right.
in a field that's so collaborative,
Yeah.
and that need to balance the pursuit of knowledge with its practical application.
It's all connected.
It really highlights how interconnected knowledge is and how even fields that seem completely separate
Yeah,
can offer these valuable insights into each other.
for sure.
And it shows just how important it is to stay open to new perspectives
Absolutely.
and new approaches. This exploration has got me thinking about how we can apply these insights outside of that.
That's interesting.
What about you?
Well, it makes me wonder about continuous learning in other areas of life.
Okay.
How can we apply these principles of knowledge sharing and mentorship and finding that joy
Yeah,
to our personal growth and development?
that's a great question.
It is something to think about.
It seems like these insights could enrich not just our work, but our lives as well.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, we've reached the end of our deep dive for today.
Yeah, time flies.
It does. We hope you enjoyed exploring these unexpected connections
Yeah.
between spiritual wisdom and IT practices.
I hope it sparked some new ideas for everyone.
Yeah, me too. Thanks for joining us on this journey of discovery.
Thanks, everyone.
And until next time, keep seeking, keep learning, and keep diving deep.